Christina, now that we have your sheet tabs set up, would you like to start putting some data into the spreadsheet?
Yeah, let's get some work done.
Great, fantastic. So we're going to go in here and since we have January and February and March, call this first quarter production. So in cell A1, just start typing first.
Oh.
And after you've typed, now that you have first quarter production typed, notice that you have a cursor blinking at the end of the line.
Okay.
Down in the bottom left corner of your screen, there's a word in the status bar. The status bar is the gray bar that runs below the sheet tabs.
Okay.
What does it say in the bottom left corner?
It says enter, and then there's a little box that says in enter mode.
Right. When you're in enter mode, you're actually actively in a cell inputting data. So if you were to try to do anything up on the ribbons, notice most of the items are grayed out.
Oh, okay.
A lot of times people say, Barbara, I can't get to anything, it's all grayed out. And typically they are in enter mode. So we want to get out of enter mode by submitting or entering that information into the cell.
So what's the best way to do that?
There's several ways. You can tab, you can press enter, you can use the arrow key. Any one of those will do it. So just go on and choose whatever works for you, or just click in another cell altogether.
Okay.
If you press enter, which you did, you come down to the next cell in that particular column. If you'd press tab, you would have gone across the row to the next cell.
So if I'm entering information that goes down in a column, it's best to hit enter. But if I'm entering information that goes across, say, different numbers, etc., then I should really hit tab, and that will go
Correct.
across. Okay.
Correct. And in a few moments, I'm going to show you an easy way to work within a range of cells.
All right.
Okay? Now we have first quarter production, and we're going to have down there in cell A3 the sales heading. So let's type sales in cell A3. Any guess why I skipped column row 2?
To make it look pretty?
Actually, we're going to put something in row 2, but
Okay.
not in column A. So I wanted to get the column A information in.
Okay.
Now you're still in enter mode.
So tell me why these are up here. Those weren't there before.
Okay, they are there when we're in enter mode. And notice, go on and point to the check mark.
Okay.
Notice it turns green.
Oh, yeah.
Green means go. It means yes, whatever. And notice it says enter. So another way to enter information into the cell is to click the green check. Now point to the red X. It's red now.
There you go.
Notice it says cancel. Let's say you type in a cell and you realize, I just typed over some information and I didn't want to type over that information. Well, you can cancel it by clicking the red X.
Oh, and that way I won't lose that information.
You won't lose the information that was there before.
All right. So in this case, I would want to hit enter so that sale stays in that cell.
Correct.
All right. There we
So
go.
that's just another way to enter information into the cell.
All right.
Okay, so in cell A4, let's type expenses. Okay, and there you have that. And now what we need in cell B2, any guess?
In B2,
Mm-hmm.
maybe the month or a label of some sort.
Right, some kind of label. Now, I realize we're on the January sheet tab, but just so we can look at some things that might be useful to you, we're going to assume that we're going to put first quarter months on this sheet. And we'll
Okay.
ignore that sheet name for right now.
All right.
So type in, you can do the abbreviation for January, JAN, or you can type it out, whichever you prefer,
And now I'm going to use your little trick where I hit tab so I
Right.
can go.
and type FEB for February. And before you tab on that one, do you notice when the cell is active that in the bottom right corner, you have a little kind of square?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Now,
wait a minute. My
yeah,
cursor's changing.
Your mouse cursor's changing. Move your mouse out into the middle of the spreadsheet for a moment. Let's just out into, like, over towards column H. The typical mouse cursor shape is the white plus.
Okay.
And we use this to select and to highlight. Now, if you put the mouse in the cell where we are, this is the I-beam, which indicates you're in a place where you can enter text.
Oh,
if you
okay.
click, you get a cursor and you can enter text. Of course, we already have the cursor. There are other shapes that the mouse takes, and one of them, if you put it over that square, is a crosshair.
Oh, okay.
If you click and drag over one more cell with that crosshair, and let go.
Oh, it's putting March in there.
It pre-fills the data for you, so it recognizes certain series of information. We have a module later that we're going to look at this autofill type of option where we can input series like that, and we can explore it a little bit more.
Well, that's great because I really don't like to type, so
Well,
that will save me on that.
Sure, and you know what? It keeps you from making typing mistakes too.
Okay.
So that's great. Now, you know, I told you that we can tab, we can press enter, but we can also identify a range of cells we want to enter information in. In cell B3 through cell D4, we're going to put in data that represents the sales and the expenses for January, February, March.
Okay.
The easiest way to highlight that, since it's just 6 cells, is to click and drag from B3 down to D4. And notice they highlight, and you can let go.
Yeah, they're blue, but there's one that's white.
Right, that's the active cell. If you look up there at your, and I'm going to just borrow your mouse a moment, right here, this is the cell we're in, and it says B3, so that's our active cell. Press your tab key several times. Watch what happens.
Oh, it stays within that box.
Right, and if you press again, it starts over. Enter key, same thing. Press the enter key several times.
But this time, instead of going across, it's going down, just like it does when I'm entering outside of this.
So as long as I use my tab and my enter keys, I can navigate within that range of cells. Now press your down arrow.
Oh,
The range goes away. So you don't want to use the arrow keys. You want to use the tab or the enter during
Okay.
that range of cells. So go on and highlight that range of cells. And I'll tell you what, I'll let you have fun for a moment. You can come up with the sales numbers and expenses that you want to put in.
now I'm noticing here that the numbers are not put in there the same as the letters. The text that I put in there is on the left side and the numbers are on the right side.
Yes, that's correct. Your numbers are what we call right aligned in the cell, and your text is left aligned in the cell. All right, now here, let me help you there. Shift plus the tab key will go up the row. Shift plus enter, I apologize. So if you want to go to the right, it's tab, it's shift tab to the left.
Okay.
If you want to go down, it's enter, it's shift enter to go up.
So shift is kind of like reverse.
Right, it is,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, so yes, you're right. You notice that all of your text lines up on the left margin of the cell, and all of your numbers line up on the right margin of the cell. Why do you suppose we line the numbers up on the right margin?
I don't know, just to distinguish numerics from text?
Do you remember when you were a kid? I know it's a while ago, but you have children, and they taught you how to add and subtract.
Uh-huh.
What did they tell you about writing the numbers?
Oh, that you line up the ones place and the tens place and the hundreds place.
And that's why we do this here, so everything lines up and we can look at the numbers and know what we are looking at. We don't get confused, because obviously if it was left aligned, notice the 2 in cell B4 would be under the 2 in cell B3.
Okay.
And that wouldn't be the right, because that'd be 20,000 and 2,000.
Right, that wouldn't add up. Now, speaking of adding up, I would like to add these up. So, do I need to go through the process of adding this up like I did in school? 0 plus 5,
You
etc.
don't. This is why Excel exists, to help us do these mathematical calculations. Now, we do have a later module on formulas, but I'm going to show you a real quick, easy one called AutoSum.
Okay.
And all you have to do is click in the cell where you want the total, and it'll immediately look for the numbers it's going to add. So
great.
if you look up, we're on the home ribbon, and over to the far right, do you see a backwards 3?
Oh, here.
Or it looks a little bit like an E. That's actually the Greek letter sigma, and it's called AutoSum. And so if you press that, notice what happens is it's looking above the cell and say, hey, I see numbers in B4 and B3. Now, if there weren't any numbers there, it would look off to the side across the row. And notice that the cell list equals, all formulas start with an equal. Sum, that's the function that tells Excel we're going to add. And in parentheses, it lists the cell range, B3 colon B4. Now, so if that said B3 colon B6, it would mean B3, B4, B5, and B6.
So that's through, it's doing B3 and then it gets everything in between that
Right.
and then the last one.
The other thing is, because it's highlighted, if for some reason it picked up the wrong cells, you could change it by just clicking and dragging where you wanted it to go. So for example, go on and click and drag from B4 to B2. There you go. And notice it changed it. Now, obviously, that's really not what we want. It's not going to be good. So let's go back and change it from to B2 to, no, B3 to B4.
There we go.
Okay. And since your hand was on the mouse, that would have been a perfect time to go to the little check mark up in the formula bar. Or you could have hit enter or however you want to do it. So input that in, and there you go. So that's how you would add your information.
All right, that's great. So I can do that for January and February and March, and then I'll have all of my numbers.
Right. Except for, did you get a number wrong in column D4, in cell D4?
No, we had a really good month that month.
But that's expenses.
Oh.
You want to edit that and
Yeah, let's
change
edit
it?
that.
All right, let's click on cell D4. Now, there's a couple ways you can change it. You can just retype and you replace everything.
Okay.
Notice up above the D column, there's a bar, and it says the exact same thing that
Oh,
is
up
here.
here.
This is your formula bar. Anything that's in the cell shows up here.
Okay.
I can click with my I-beam, which we know places a cursor, and change it. So I'll bet you really had like 6,565.
Yeah, I think I got a couple of extra numbers on
Yeah,
that.
so why don't you take out a couple of digits there? And you can click and drag, or you could have just hit your backspace key, whatever works best for you, and then hit enter,
That's going to work out better.
and that fixes that. Just so you know, go on and click back on D4. And you can use your F2 key on your keyboard up near the top. It immediately places a cursor in the cell at the end, and you can use your arrow keys to move around and edit there.
Oh, that's great. So I have several different ways that I can edit information in there. So I can type information directly into there and hit enter or tab or an arrow key. I can highlight it and come up to the formula bar, and once I fill the information in, I could either use the check or the cancel if I want to get out of that, or I could hit enter, and then I could also hit F2.
Right.
That's great. So depending on what I want to do, I have several options there.
You sure do. Let's click the green check and get that entered into the cell. And the only thing left to do would be to save your file.